Hey there, guys. I've wanted to build something a little bit different for a little while, and actually this new ninja commander actually kind of caught my eye, and I kind of want to take a deck, or at least a list, from the EDH rec pages here, and build a deck for myself that I would actually like. Like I'll put in some of these really cool, like unblockable things and whatnot, and then just have all these really cool, big beating things that, come in, punch people for lots of damage, and do something like draw cards or kill creatures or whatnot, that sort of thing. I thought that sounded really cool. I don't really want to go down like, putting Blightsteel Colossus into this deck. I probably would guess that it would be in the average list. I don't know whether it actually is or whether it isn't. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out all the things that are in the average list as we go along. And as we get to putting together a deck and seeing what we can build with into the Architect. So let's go ahead and get that list together. Alrighty, so we're on to having a look now at the Architect list here that we can actually see and have a look and have a fiddle with and, see what we can put in, take out, all those kinds of things. Now, as I said, this is more of a big, punchy, damage-dealing sort of stuff type deck where I don't really need a lot of ninjas. I need quote-unquote ninjas, if you catch my drift. I don't need actual ninjas. I don't need ninjutsu of most any type or any kind. And I did think that Blightsteel was in here, so we're immediately going to take it out. Whoops. I have made a mistake. Look out. But anyway, yes, we just want big, punchy things and some of these smaller, evasive things that we can get in for damage. So we're gonna go through this list. We're gonna have a look at seeing what we can take out, put in, etc. Like I said, we don't need any ninjas. I don't know about Voidwinter. It's a bit mean, but that's kind of the idea. Toxel is very mean. I mean, I know that it's technically only our opponent's stuff that gets killed, but I just think that it actually gets in the way of what I want to kind of do with this deck. This isn't I'm going to just sit here and twiddle my thumbs and no one else gets to play the game type deal. This is I'm just going to kill you all and win the game type thing. This is not a grindy deck that I'm trying to build. This is more grindy cards, so that's kind of my thinking on that. And again, we don't need ninjas. We don't need Umazawa because most of the things we have are unblockable anyway, or mostly unblockable anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Silver Fur, we could use to reduce the ability of our commander, but we don't really need it that much. It's not that big of a cost. Some of these bigger ninja, maybe. We don't really need Sheldred. We're not, again, doing that. We're not stealing people's stuff. We'll have our own stuff, so we don't really need that. RuneScarred, I don't really want to tutor. That's just me. But obviously, if you guys want to keep it in for yourselves, by all means. And again, take any suggestions that I say with a grain of salt, because I'm building this deck the way that I would want to build it, and I'm trying to build it in a way that's big and punchy and does a whole lot of stuff with the creatures that it actually has. Nazahol could stick. I'm not sure. Again, we don't need ninjas for the most part to play. You may look at the top. Yeah, sure. But again, I don't really care about stealing our opponent's stuff. We can have our own stuff. Maybe Ginger Tax is not too sure. Again, pretty mean. Again, we're not stealing our opponent's stuff. That's not what we're doing, or at least not what I'm doing. Now, Grasslex. This might be controversial, but I actually don't think it does a whole lot for us. And there's another enchantment that's actually in this deck, or actually a couple of, maybe it's a couple, but Cunning Evasion, basically, that does the same thing, really doesn't do a whole lot for us, because we're going to have all these unblockable things. So we're never going to really need to worry about our things being blocked. So that's just not going to come up. It's just not worth our time. Now, another thing is, I know I said that I don't really like Ristic Study and cards like this, but I do know how good and powerful that they can be. But in this deck, I don't think that we need them because, again, we are a creature-based deck. We're going to get all of our advantages from playing creatures for the most part. We need certain cards in this deck to support that, like Mana Rocks and things like that. But beyond that, we don't really need these enchantments. So I'm going to take them all out, including Reconnaissance Mission and Rogue class, because we're not going to have many rogues. And we're also going to take out Biden of Thas, so we just don't really need it. We will leave everything else for the most part. Now, personally, I would take out Sol Ring, but of course, I'm just going to leave it for now. I would also not really take Clearwater Pathway. I don't like the Pathway lands, that's just me, and I don't like these two-color lands that you have to reveal lands, whatnot. I don't really see the point. And I know how good Bajuka Bog is, but I could just live without it and just live with a swamp and put in the card that basically exiles everyone's graveyards, and you have to pay a bit of mana for it, but whatever, that's fine. It's better to know when you can use it and need to use it than, it just randomly happening, I would say. Rogue's Passage, again, we don't need this kind of thing. We have a whole lot of unblockable stuff that we have in our deck, so we don't really need that sort of thing. We don't need Demir Aqueduct. That's just, really bad. So just get that right out of here. We don't need a temple, I don't think. So that can get out of here. I'm also going to take out most of these spells here that we just don't really need. I'll leave Feed the Swarm in, even though I don't think it's that amazing. I know how good people think it is or whatever. Again, I'm terrible with counter spells. Absolutely terrible with counter spells. So I'm going to take out all the counter spells. If you want to leave in the counter spells, you can leave them in. But again, I would just take them out because that's me, and I don't like counter spells. I'm terrible with counter spells. They never work for me, never do anything for me. Dark Ritual, it's only one off. I'm guessing that that's because this is a more push towards CDH list. Brainstorm doesn't do too much for us. And Offer You Can't Refuse, and also Arcane Denial. And I'm also going to take out the Tutor, because I don't like to tutor, and I'm also going to take out this Planeswalker because I don't see what it's doing for us. So, yeah, we're taking out quite a bit of stuff from this list already as it is. Yeah, we're pretty ruthless with these lists, or at least I am, because I'm demanding, and I want the things that I want, and obviously other people want the things that they want, so, yeah. Alright, so where were we? Over here. We got to this guy, didn't we? So we were going to take him out. Gingerbread's just fine. Shinobi, we don't need you. Alright. So that's fine. Again, I don't care about the transmute on this. The fact that it can't be blocked, okay. Dothy's okay, but again, the other ability isn't really that relevant. Now, with Archon, I do think that this is a good card, but I often find that the issue that I have with this is that it's only one player that this affects. I want things that affect all my opponents because, well, all my opponents are going to be dangerous for most of the game. And yes, one opponent is going to be mostly ahead sometimes, but sometimes that's also going to be me. So when I'm the one ahead, I really want to be able to punish all of my opponents equally so that I can, make sure I keep them down equally and can, control the board enough to, keep myself ahead as much as possible rather than targeting one player down and hoping that the other two can't get that bigger advantage. So I'm just going to remove this. So now what does this do? It just rolls dice. I'm not dealing with something that's rolling dice and I don't know what it's going to do and whatever, all that stuff. It's too much effort, too much energy, even just reading the card, just like, what does it do? Oh, yeah, it rolls dice. Okay, cool, I'm out. First off. So, after a lot of cuts, we're down to 62 cards, and we want to add a few lands to this list, at least, because we're only at 30 lands. We need at least, 35, I would say. It looks like most of the lands that you would kind of expect are here for the most part, but we can add some more ones easily enough and whatnot. So we will get on that as well. And I'll get on making a little bit of a swap in for this deck and see what we can change. But just before we get into the video for today, if you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, please do consider subscribing, turning on that notifications. It really helps us out. But with that being said, let's get right on into the video for today. Alright, so after a bit of fiddling, this is the list that I came up with. Just more clean instant speed removal that I think will be more relevant to the way that I play and to what most folks I think would play if you're not playing the counterspell heavy meta and whatnot. You're just going to want to kill things on the field. I did decide to put Academy Ruins in, and I did decide to take out the flip modal land, whatnot, and I think a couple of other ones I can't really remember. I did also decide to put in Blinkmoth and Fairy Conclave because they make cheap creatures for us, and if we need them to become creatures and whatnot, then we can make them into creatures. Otherwise, it wasn't too much of a big change in regards to the land. Just added Tainted Isle, Underground River, what else was it? Sunken Ruins, was it? I think that was it. To the list here, and that was pretty much it after that, besides just adding a couple mana rocks and whatnot, because I was like, well, it's not quite enough, I don't think. Just Liquid Metal Torque and Prismatic Lens, not too exciting, not terrible, but just decent and just good. Besides that, just a whole lot of creatures that I felt, probably fit in here. A lot of stuff that is from the original list still, but like Thought Monitor, I felt like that's pretty darn good. Just getting it into play for 4 mana, still okay, not too amazing, but it's already tapped and attacking, and it draws you 2 cards, and you can bring it back to your hand and get it back, and things like that. Reality Trip helps you find cards off the top sometimes, so that can be useful. Thakos Seer, I don't know why this wasn't in the list. It's a pretty weird old card, I guess, but it's really good. Basically unblockable. When it leaves play, we draw a card. So whenever we ninjutsu something on top with it, we get a card. So that's really good. Sturmgeist or Sturmgeist, don't know how really to say it. Just draws his cards when it hits, and its power is equal to the number of cards in our hands. Sphinx of Second Sun. We get an extra untap, upkeep, and draw at our end step. I actually a post-combat main phase, but whatever. Doesn't really matter that much. Some of these cards, like maybe Skeletal Vampire and some of the other ones, aren't super amazingly interesting or whatnot, but they're still pretty darn good. Sharding Sphinx still in that boat, I guess. Shadow Mage Archfiend, makes our opponents sack stuff. That's still really good. Affects all of our opponents. We gain some life. That's okay as well, but it just does hit for a whole lot of damage when we ninjutsu it in. Scourge of Fleets can get rid of people's stuff. Sandstone can draw us lots of cards. Research Teeth can draw some cards. Ornithopter of Paradise for more mana. Necropolis region is almost one of our biggest win conditions. It just buffs up our stuff so quickly that we'll quickly close out the game after it comes out. I've found that with some really nice playtesting. Mole Drifter, just ETBs for 4 mana and draws us some cards. That's really nice. Messenger Jays, we can buff this up, and if our opponents don't want to take more damage, or the opponent that we're attacking doesn't want to take more damage, they might give us a card. Or if they just want the game to be over, they might give us a counter, in which case, it doesn't really matter. We're killing them one way or the other. So, Massacreworm, I'm not too fond of the lose life part because I don't really like that whole mechanic and whatnot. That's just me. I only like combat damage. I'm very particular about that, but whatever. We care more about killing our opponent's stuff. So we do need to do that sometimes. Imarith has Ward, which is nice to a degree. Slows people down from killing it. And when it deals damage, we draw cards. And if we have less than 3 cards in hand, we draw it equal to the difference, which is nice. Inspired Sphinx, again, not too amazing, but okay. Grim Hireling, just obvious we're going to hit people, so we're making treasures pretty good. Now, Gormand, we don't cast him, so we don't need to pay the additional cost to sacrifice something, so that's really cool. And then each opponent sacrifices a creature. They get to choose, but still, that's all right, Deep Phalum Stalker can make something unblockable. Most of our stuff is unblockable, but that's a nice ability sometimes. But whenever a creature we control deals damage, we draw cards, which is really what we want to do. We would just want all these cards that are basically drawing us more cards, like Baleful Force, things like that. Archfiend of Shadow, or Sorrows, sorry. Just, gives -2 to all our opponent's stuff. So that's pretty good. Not the best, but still all right. All-Seeing Arbiter draws us more cards, can debuff somebody's thing. That's pretty good. Abhorrent Overlord just makes a whole bunch of flyers when it enters the battlefield. Even if it only makes 2, that doesn't really matter that much. The thing that matters is most of those are probably going to be fairly difficult for our opponents to block. So then we can ninjutsu more things with them and things like that. Or even if people do block some of them, it doesn't really matter because it's just we'll ninjutsu something else, and there's just more scary things than some random 1/1s flying in the air. So they might just let those through when we've got these big 6/6s and 7/7s and 5/5s and all this other stuff. So this deck can easily kill people very quickly by just slamming these big flying demons and avatars and elementals and other, crazy things into play, and Eldrazi. And yes, we have Eldrazi ninjas, and we have demon ninjas, and we have Sphinx ninjas, and all of these, just weird different ninjas, dragon ninjas and whatnot. So we have all kinds of different ninja classes here, quote unquote, that are going to, punch our opponents for lots and lots of damage. And help out all of our stuff, help us draw more cards and all that sort of stuff. So that's really what we want to do. So I think this is a really good list to sort of start with, at least for me, for now. And this is where I'm going to start by, building a deck from this. I'm actually going to build a deck like this. I'm, of course, going to make some more changes to it, but you guys could also make a very decent list of a deck from this list. I would say that, if you were to pick up this list, it's probably $300 something, but you can never get away with building a deck for fairly too cheap nowadays, I find. It's always tough, especially with the dual lands and the non-basic lands and things like that. But if you want to go on a budget, there certainly are some really great budget lands out there as well. But anyway, I do think that that's pretty much all I've got here for this one. I do hope you've enjoyed it, and hope you found it interesting, even if this isn't a deck that you've been looking at, though I don't know why you'd check it out if you weren't thinking about it. But it's a pretty sweet deck. I don't know really why I didn't really like it too much before, because probably it was just too much Oh, I'm going to sneak attack in Blightsteel, ninjutsu in Blightsteel. Well, what else can you do, kind of thing? I really wanted to find things that were more like fair-ish, I guess, for the most part. And yeah, again, there's some things in here that I will definitely take out and some swaps that I'll probably have to make. But I'll do that through playtesting. But anyway, guys, you can let me know all your thoughts. Write them down there in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond to them all. I really love interacting with you guys whenever you do comment. We get to talk about all the geeky things that we love in EDH. So yeah, if I don't see you down there in those comments, I'll see you in the next one.